Sex and the City 2, you might have seen the posters. You might be wondering whether Mark's going to like it. Just a reminder, as we did mention earlier to Gabby, you did say when you went to see the first one...
So
and
don't go and see the first one, because if you do, you'll only encourage them to make another one. And, well, obviously...
They
did, but loads of people. And this will be #1 next week. And I should say right at the beginning of this, you're not going to get a rant about this, because it's one of those things like, you know, I mean, it's the parental thing about I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. I mean, my expectations were low, and I have to say they were met. It's ghastly, and I've spent quite a lot of time in the last week trying to figure out exactly what it is that is so ghastly and putrid and vomit-inducing about Sex and the City 2. So essentially, you know, as I said, if you went to see the first one, this is kind of your fault. It's about 146 minutes long, which is about the same length as 2001. And in 2001, as I've said before, Stanley Kubrick goes from the birth of mankind to the birth of a new species and, you know, and connection with the extraterrestrials. And in Sex and the City 2, it goes from a group of totally consumerist, obsessed caricatures who end up as a group of totally consumer-obsessed caricatures. Anyway, the plot, it starts with a big gay wedding, okay? And there is a big gay wedding, which they keep referring to as a gay wedding, so we mustn't call it a gay wedding, but it's so gay that apparently when this much gay energy is in the room, these are lines from the film, incidentally, Liza Minnelli will manifest. And so Liza Minnelli comes on and officiates at the wedding. And it's the kind of gag that you could only make if basically, you know, it's like gay men making jokes about gay men. I mean, to be honest with you, the whole thing about Sex and the City is it appears that it's what's the phrase? It's jumped the shark. It's gone from being about a group of women, which I'm reliably informed that the television series was, to basically being about a group of men in drag. That is what it is, and it sort of tells you this at the very beginning when they have the big gay wedding, which is an in joke. Which if anybody else was making it, you go, I'm sorry, this is stereotypical and just not funny and crass. And would you stop doing it? So anyway, Liza Minnelli turns up because everything's so gay. Fine, this is the beginning of the film. Then we have some stuff meeting the characters again, and then one of them gets offered a first-class ticket to Abu Dhabi and says, I'm going to take all my girlfriends with me. So they go on tour, and this of course is a plot device which is, you know, known from all movies that based on television series that run out of steam. The example that I was going to use, although somebody writing in has already mentioned it, is not Carry On Up the Khyber, which a lot of other people have mentioned, but is, in fact, Are You Being Served, a movie in which they go to the Costa Blanca, and it's all the Mrs. Slocum, you know, ooh, I'm worriing, you know, all that stuff. It is essentially that
was
film.
Danny Dyer for a moment.
Yeah, it was. I think, actually, it's the same actor plays both roles. So that is what you get, and the central idea this time is that they are older, and therefore they are dealing with age, and here's a clip of them dealing with age.
Wow, that's a whole lot of help. How many are you working there?
44. I'm on the one-a-day Fruity Pebbles plant.
Women our age shouldn't joke about vitamins.
Women who are not our age shouldn't say women our age.
Well, one day, very soon, you will thank me. I am leading the way through the menopause maze with my vitamins, my melatonin sleep patches, my bioidentical estrogen cream, progesterone cream, a touch of testosterone.
She's the hormone whisperer.
I am. I've tricked my body into thinking it's younger.
I've tricked my body into thinking it's thinner. Spanx.
And I'm telling you, no hot flashes, no mood swings, and my sex drive, it's right back to where it was.
Really? Hadn't heard.
So, I've tricked my body into thinking it's thinner. If any of you were any thinner, you wouldn't exist. And as been pointed out by everybody, for a film which primarily consists of people sitting around eating food, they don't appear to have eaten at all. So there's been an awful lot written by women about just how grotesque a portrayal of women this is, that they are basically obsessed with their bodies, obsessed with husbands, obsessed with sex, obsessed with, you know, nothing other than that, obsessed with consumerism. There really isn't not much to add to that other than to say...
Is that what's wrong with that then?
Because basically its entire portrayal of female liberation is the right to buy expensive shoes, okay? And I don't believe for 1 minute that these people are depictions of real women. I just don't. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't believe it. If there are, then I'm mistaken. I just don't. I don't believe that real people in the real world are as ghastly as this. However, I'd like to move this on slightly from sex war politics to class war politics, which for me was the overbearing. I mean, I think that its portrayal of women in general is just horrible. I mean, you worried about Killer Inside Me, believe me. But it's the class war issue here, which is this, right? Firstly, you are meant to be engaged with these characters who are stinking wealthy and consumerist beyond your wildest dreams. The main one, the one played by Sarah Jessica Parker, appears to write books, right? Although we never actually see her. Every now and then she goes, sits down and does a little bit of fiddling around. She lives in an apartment with her husband, who, in order to be sort of funding this apartment, is probably an arms dealer. Well, it's never really discussed, where all their money is coming from. And she gets cross with him because at one point he buys her a massive flat screen television, and she's cross that he hasn't bought her a bit of jewellery. And then, because their relationship is a little bit on top of each other, she goes back to her other apartment, which they've just kept on. She has a whole other apartment. Okay, so they have one lavish apartment, massive television, huge amounts of wealth, massive amount of clothes, walk-in wardrobe that you could put a family in. Then she goes off to another apartment that she hasn't bothered to sell because we're all so wealthy. And then she moans and complains about how awful her life is and isn't this difficult and I really have to get away. I have to get away from all this. So point number one. Point number two.
So what was the point?
The point is, first, why do I care about this character? This is a character who has so much money, so much wealth, that actually having two apartments, she's still, oh God, so hard, so difficult, oh, I'm having problems with my relationship. The defining moment for me is she goes to this hotel, which is $22,000 a night, okay, but she's getting it on the free. And when they arrive, each one of them is given their own personal exotic flunky, who then waits on them hand on foot.
You'd expect that for $22,000 a night, wouldn't you?
And yes, but at no point is anyone saying, I'm sorry, this is just ghastly beyond belief, that it's horrible. Fine.
Is there a choice of films?
So what happens is that at one moment, the flunky who she has been given, who points out that actually he can only go and see his wife once every couple of months because the airfare is expensive, right? And you expect this to be a moment when she suddenly realises that the ghastly wealth that she's living with has a consequence, that there are people around who have less money. But no, this is used as a moment so that she can go, oh yes, I have to be away from Mr. Big sometimes as well. Therefore, and so you're going, I can't believe you've just done this. You've gone, you stinkingly wealthy consumerist dripping with gold shoes, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't have enough money to go and see. And what you've seen in this isn't horrible, staggering inequality of just corpulent, filthy lucre, but oh yes, we both have the same issue, which is to do with being apart from our loved one. Point number one, okay?
This is the old trot at the barricades, isn't it?
I'm sorry, this was the point at which I started going, then comrades come rally. Sorry, okay? As for the rest of them,
What was that?
That's the Internationale. One of them is a lawyer, right, who is not treated well at work, so quits. At no point does anybody in her marriage say, what are you going to do about the money? No, because that's not an issue, because obviously, which means one of two things. Either the money that she was earning was nothing at all, which is unlikely because she's a lawyer, or the money that she's earning is completely insignificant because they've got money coming out of their ears. They've got so money, who would possibly care? Another one is a woman who is a mother who has a full-time nanny assistant, but who still finds time to go and cry in the food cupboard because she's so oppressed by having to do the childcare, and the child puts jammy hands on her vintage skirt. And we're meant to sympathise. And then there's a moment of self-reflexiveness in which he says, oh, what on earth do people who don't have help do? Nod to the screen. The rest of us going, oh, the serfs. If we were in a Sex and the City movie, we'd be the help. We'd be the serfs. We'd be the person opening the door. So all that stuff going on. Fine. Then there's the race relations issue, which is they go to a foreign country where people dress differently. The main character, the screamy one, who's Samantha, I think her name is, who's all the time going on about her sex life, ends up throwing condoms at these people, saying, I'm a woman, I have sex. This is meant to be the great liberating them. In fact, the main message of the woman is, I'm a woman, I buy shoes, I am a consumerist. But
she could throw her shoes.
The twist of the movie is that it turns out that under the burqas, under the full dress, actually all those women are wearing designer Dior's, that the minute they get in the same room as all the sexy men, they go, oh look, we're all just as vacuous and shallow and horrible and consumerist obsessed as the rest of you. So essentially the message of the film is this: feel sympathy for people who are disgustingly wealthy, and so disgustingly wealthy that they not only don't notice having a spare apartment, not only don't notice losing the income from a job, not only don't notice that one of the people that they're employing is so poor that he can only afford to go and see his wife once every 3 months. Not only that, but are also imperialist American pig dogs of the highest order when it comes to cultural imperialism. I mean, honestly, I tell you, it's one of those things you just go, this is a satire, right? And it's not to do the gender politics, as I said, I will leave that to women who have written much more, authoritatively outraged commentaries about this than I have. I would refer you, incidentally, to In the Stranger, this column by Lindy West, I think it is. Many people have tweeted about this. I can't read any of it out because it's scorchingly rude, but it's... But on the class war politics, it is the most... No, don't say it like that.
Well, you did say, I'm not going to rant. You did say, I am not going to rant, and that was about 10 minutes ago.
It is consumerist pornography. It is an orgy of dripping, just dripping wealth that made me want to be sick. Dilemma. As Ron Howard said, story is a guy sees his best friend's wife making up to another guy. Should he tell him or should he keep the information to himself? He broils with seething inattention. He is played by Vince Vaughn. Here is him attending his partner's parents' wedding anniversary.
40 years. That is a long time to be with someone. 40 years. Wow. It's impressive. I personally don't know a lot about marriage, but I would imagine it can't be easy, all those 40 years being with someone, because people are not perfect. People make mistakes in life, but I would assume what would get you through, right, those 40 years would be honesty. Honesty and honesty alone.
And love.
But even more than that, Bert, is the honesty.
Don't forget about patience.
No one's going to forget about patience, Sue. You can relax. Patience is on the table, right? What I'm talking about, though, is honesty here.
That's probably the best scene in the film.
Well, Python-esque and surprise.
Yes.
And ruthless efficiency.
I'll come in again.
Exactly.
So, I like Ron Howard. That's pretty much all I have nice to say about the dilemma. He, in that interview that you did with him, just talked about a kooky notion, comedy drama, through the filter of Vince Vaughn. So, completely unoriginal notion. Neither comic nor dramatic, and not so much filtered as infested by Vince Vaughn. I mean, he also talks about it being edgier and riskier, for which I think, ghastlier and more misjudged. I mean, I cannot remember having seen a film that was quite so misjudged. And there's a critical moment in that interview in which Ron Howard said that one of the things he liked about it was that you don't know where it's going. It looked to me like no one who made it knew where it was going. And this is its big problem. There are certain things that you're allowed to do in comedies because they're comedies, okay? Whenever you're in any genre movie, I know people hate talking about this, but the fact of the matter is that generic conventions exist all the time. Very, very few movies aren't interested in generic conventions. When you're in comedies, people are allowed to climb trees and fall off balconies, and get up and fine. And people are allowed to behave in ways which don't happen in the real world, but it's okay because it's a comic convention. That's just how it is. In movies that are perhaps more serious, in which we're asked to accept that these characters may have some sort of element of realism to it, those things go away. The problem with the dilemma is it cannot make up its mind whether it wants to have the right to do the kooky comedy, slapstick falling out of off the edge of balconies, falling out of trees, running around, behaving in ways which are completely inconceivable, which in real life nobody would do ever, or being the other movie, the more serious movie about, hey, I've got a dilemma about the fact that I have seen my best friend's wife in this compromising position, and what am I going to do about it? Oh, it's eating me up from inside. Oh, it's tearing me apart. Oh, I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. So, firstly, A, it doesn't know what kind of movie it is. Secondly, it is at least 3 different movies. It's the dilemma movie, it's the kooky let's fall out of the balcony and fall out of the tree, and there's a movie about cars, which is, frankly, another movie altogether, which involves the aforesaid speech in which Vince Vaughn makes a speech about electric cars are gay. And what Ron Howard said is, well, that was taken out of context. When you see it in context, it's different because you see it, he's the kind of thing that his character would say, in which case you go, fine. Within that, if that is the kind of thing his character would say, why is Jennifer Connelly with him? Because we are expected to believe all the way through the movie that her character, who is tied up with him and is waiting for him to pop the question, is somehow completely devoted to and in love with him, and it's just a matter he's got to wrestle with, getting his life together because he's a grown-up boy. There's a bromance thing going on in it. You go, no, I'm sorry. If you are in any way behaving like the person you're behaving like in the more comedic moments of this film, which also the car subplot involves Queen Latifah making jokes about Ladywood and just really sort of weird. It's like they brought in a different script writer. It's like a whole load of people got together in a room and went, I've got this part of it. Have you got the Queen Latifah bawdy stuff? Yeah, fine. Have you got the electric cars or gay stuff? Yeah, that's fine. Have you got the married couple series? Yeah, I've got. And then into that, they bring Winona Ryder. Now, oddly enough, Winona Ryder is far and away the best thing in the film. The funny thing is, she appears to be in Black Swan. I mean, she is in Black Swan, but all the way through The Dilemma, she's doing this borderline mad. I'm really not got somebody you want to be messing around with because I've got the scary eyes on and I have got my act back together. It's an interesting thing because Winona Ryder's career went through some sort of strange moments. She now appears to be back in some sort of, middle period forcefulness, and she's very good in that, but in completely the wrong film. And I sat there watching this thinking, I can't believe that they all sat in a room together and thought this will work. Vince Vaughn's character is just, if you take him seriously, he's repulsive. Also, Vince Vaughn appears to be doing a really bad impression of Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn appears to be doing what, sometimes comedians, impersonators, for a cheap laugh, will impersonate another comedian doing their routine, which always seems to me like, well, that's not comedy, that's just doing somebody else's gags, isn't it? If you're a comedian impersonating another comedian, that's not comedy, that's just thing. Well, Vince Vaughn looks like somebody went, hey, have you seen me doing Vince Vaughn? He's kind of turned into this caricature of himself in that way that very, very few people can actually get away with doing. So he looks like he's doing Vince Vaughn turned up to the max. The plot is pulling, there's a dilemma, but actually it's a bawdy comedy, and actually there's a nasty edge, but not that nasty. We're going to go sentimental schmaltzy, then we're going to go a little bit of... It drags on for 111 minutes, but feels like it was way, 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 way longer than that. I don't believe in either of the two central men. I don't believe that either of the two women that they are with would be with them, certainly not for the duration as the way the movie pans out. And I'm sitting there thinking, Ron Howard... I like Ron Howard. I mean, I hate Angels and Demons and I hate the Da Vinci Code, but I like Ron Howard because
you didn't like Angels and Demons.
But it didn't.
You should tell me.
It always seemed to me that he was somebody who fundamentally understood, good, putting a drama together and well constructed. I honestly, The Dilemma was a headache and a half of a film, and I really hated it. And don't tell me that you enjoyed it. Did you?
Well, if I did tell you I enjoyed it, what would you say?
I'd say you're lying because I know that's not the case.
No, there are some laughs after an hour and a half. If you want laughs, go see The King's Speech, because there are more laughs in The King's Speech than there are.
But what does that tell you? There are more laughs in a film about somebody attempting to overcome a stammer to introduce the beginning of World War II.
On the subject of Angels and Demons, we had our allocated time with Ron Howard,
and it didn't
about 10 or 12 minutes, and I thought, shall I tell him about Angels and Demons? Shall I tell him about the rant which then saved someone's life? And I thought, by the time we've got there, he might be so annoyed by the fact that the thing that saved someone's life is the fact that you hated it so much.
Yeah.
It might spoil the rest of the interview.
Okay.
And that we should probably just be positive and talk about the dilemma.
The dilemma. But
was that the right choice?
That was the right
dilemma.
No, that was the right choice. Come on, marks out of 10 for The Dilemma. Seriously. It's going to go on your record. Marks out of 10 for The Dilemma.
I would like to point out that if there's a follow-up, of course, it could be trilemma, which is a genuine word, which is a difficult choice of 3. So
and that will happen. So marks out of 10. Come on.
3.
Generous.
Oh, what should I have said?
Well, 2 at the very outside.
If only you told me that, I'd have said 2. Okay.
It's rubbish.
The next review will be...
Black Swan.
What else is new, sir?
Well, 500 Days of Summer, which, if you've seen the posters that are all around the place, apparently, according to, I think it's our very own James King, it's, hey, the hippest, coolest comedy of the year. And that means that the young people are down with it. So I have to apologise in advance because clearly I'm 46, right? So... What you need to know is this. It's being billed as sort of Annie Hall for the Twitter generation. And it's a story of a girl called Summer. You see, 500 Days of Summer. It's a pun. It doesn't mean summer goes on for 500 days. It means 500 days of a relationship with Summer. In fact, it's got brackets around the title, so the 500 is in brackets, and then Days of Summer. Now, before I play you a clip, I need to say 2 things. First is that Summer is played by Zooey Deschanel, whose name I'm probably not pronouncing correctly, but if I pronounce it in the voice that she would doubtless say, is Zooey Deschanel. And she is Summer. And this is a quote from the director, Mark Webb, which I'm going to play you before I play you the clip, which says, "It was the title that finally got me. Something clicked. the writers, without descending into oddball high concept, had conjured up a relationship that felt both artful and truthful, metaphorical and literal. Here is a clip that I hope involves Zooey Deschanel.
You okay?
Yeah.
You sure?
Summer, I gotta ask you something.
What?
What are we doing?
Thought we were going to the movies.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, what's going on here with us?
I don't know. Who cares? I'm happy. Aren't you happy?
Yeah.
Good.
And that's kind of the way in which we should probably discuss the film. I'm happy.
No, I don't. I'll be irritated,
You're
even though you
happy?
only got 5 minutes.
He's kind of happy. Everyone's happy.
Can you do
And then
that
it's-
alien squishy noise
sometimes
instead?
It's very heavy, and sometimes it's a bit sad. But what are we doing here? We're being happy, and then... Now, look, the short version of it is this. The film wants you to believe that the character played by Zooey Deschanel is incredibly sort of, cute and kooky. A little bit of kooky goes such a long way with me. And Zooey Deschanel, if you look in the dictionary under kooky, there will be a picture of her doing that thing that she does with the big wide eyes, slightly scared deer in a headlight. Oh, Zooey, got a fringe coming down over my big wide eyes. But I like the Smiths. And it's kind of...
I like the Smiths.
Yeah, because one of the things about this film... No, hang on, because one of the things about the film is it's about people who like the Smiths, right? Now, it's a weird thing. See, I love the Smiths and I love Morrissey, but I hate people in films who like the Smiths or like Morrissey. And in fact...
What does that tell you about yourself?
No, I know. It's a strange self-loathing thing, isn't it? It's like that thing in Clerks when he says, I love gatherings, but you hate people. I know, it's so ironic, isn't it? There's a certain type of person who, when depicted on screen, just makes my hackles go. I mean, it's like the sound of... And I don't do dippiness. I don't do kookiness. I don't do... The last time I saw Zooey Deschanel, she was in that film with Paul Dano, right? And they don't come more kooky than Paul Dano, who's fantastic in There Will Be Blood. And incidentally, Zooey Deschanel was very good briefly in The Assassination of Jesse James because she's being directed to do something else. But when she appears to be playing herself, when she is kind of Queen of Indie, everything, navel gazing, let's look at the shoes, stars, trees, and I just go, and there's a pun in the centre of them. 500 days of summer, she's summer, 500 days of summer. And it's one of those, and it's all done because it's described, again, by its creators as a postmodern love story, which again makes me go, please don't describe anything as a postmodern love story. So we have the days, but the days are told out of order. And there's a narration which has no reason to be there and should be lost completely. And there are some nice little moments in it in which they do that thing about capturing the awkwardness of young love. But there are great long sections of it in which I think the problem with this film is that it's essentially in love with kookiness, with strangeness, with weird, with indie, with shoe. And I just think I'm not interested in that. And I think it's very telling that the film clearly worked for James King in a way that it didn't work for me. And I don't think it's just because critics think differently about things. I think it may well be...
He's young and you're not.
Well, partly that, and also partly because I think that he is blessed with the spirit of the love of mankind, and I like people to say what it is that they mean, and I don't like kookiness, and I think that there is a thing about cinematic romance. I think if you look at Annie Hall is the ne plus ultra of kookiness on screen. Diane Keaton in Annie Hall is as far as I will go for kooky, right? When Diane Keaton in Annie Hall says la-di-da, she can just about get away with it because it's Diane Keaton, but any further than that, and we tip up, Zooey Deschanel has taken it. She's, to go back to the 2001 reference, she has gone through the Stargate of kook and has come out the other end as the sort of, the wide-eyed dear child of the universe going like this. Oh, yeah, we're happy. And no, we're not happy.
Kookie's beatnik slang, by the way, and probably comes from cuckoo.
Does it?
Yeah,
well, I think yes. Cuckoo is. So let me just point out, if the filmmakers are listening, a couple of notes which I did make to be. I've
got a couple of emails on this to fit in before 4.
Okay, very quickly. Don't use references to the Smiths. Don't fall into pastiches of other movies. Those bits don't work. Don't call anything a postmodern love story. Don't put things out of order if you haven't got a really good reason for doing with it. Don't use a voiceover if it's not necessary. And please cut down on the kookiness.
Alistair in Glasgow. Dear Dr. Inglorious and Dr. Well, I watched 500 Days of Summer this week, found it thoroughly enjoyable, hour and a half. However, it did seem to be rather conflicted, stuck halfway between being a straight-up romantic comedy and something more interesting. A better film was in there, waiting to get out. Too often all the interesting edges were smoothed out good, but not as good as it might be. Barnaby and Billericay, Dear Mark and Mayo. I saw 500 Days of Summer yesterday and thoroughly enjoyed it. Once in a while, you get a romantic comedy that's a real gem, genuinely funny, intelligent, and in a way rather moving. It's the latest rare example of this dwindling genre. Even Zooey Deschanel managed to remain bearable. The time hopping back and forth may seem like Damages meets Love Actually, but the format is quirky rather than irritating and fits the witty rhythm of the script. Superior to many romantic comedies released in the past few years, this had me smiling and frequently laughing from begging to end, or beginning even to
begging, yes. Well, I think from begging to end. Well, I'm sorry, I'm out on a limb on this, but it didn't work for me. It grated with me, although there are some things that are quite charming. Can I just say a genuinely kooky rom-com recently was Anvil. That is a proper cynical rom-com that's genuinely about love. This was the first film back of 2009 for me, and it was one of those things when you go, it's the first film I've seen in 2009, and I'm already fast-forwarding to the end of 2009 and thinking, if this is not in my top 10 worst of the year, top 5 worst of the year, then the year will have been so bad that I make you this promise now. If Bride Wars isn't in my top 10 worst films of the year, if there are 10 films worse than Bride Wars this year, I quit. Okay? So literally, bear this in mind.
No, don't say that, because then people will hold you to it.
I know, but it's like, you know, every now and then you have to make a stand, and this is it. If the state of play,
you can make a stand over Kit Kats, but it's no point making a stand over Bride Wars.
Simon, you don't have to see them. You didn't have to sit there and watch Bride Wars, okay?
Yeah, but I'm not a film reviewer.
No, but I am, right?
Well, that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. And if there are 10 films worse than Bride Wars this year, I quit, okay? So, there are 2 Anne Hathaway movies at the moment which are, you know, Anne Hathaway nuptial projects. One of them is Rachel Getting Married, which is directed by Jonathan Demme, which is this kind of edgy, handheld affair about these really horrible people who, you know, you're meant to kind of empathise with, but you don't. And but it's for your consideration. And then we have this, which is this not edgy, not handheld movie about horrible people who you're meant to find funny, but you don't, which is for your money. And the story is Anne Hathaway and Kate Hudson are 2 close friends, and they've grown up together with dreams of weddings. Ever since they were little girls, they dreamt about weddings, and now they're both going out with boys who are both going to propose to them, and they're going to have weddings. But you never guess what? They both dream of having the same wedding, and oh, the coincidence, on the same day and in the same place. That's going to create a clash of loyalties. Here's a clip.
At the end of the day, I want you at my wedding, and whichever way this works out, one of us will just have to be married on a different day.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I want you at my wedding too, obviously. If we can't think of any other way out of this, one of us will simply have to be flexible.
Yeah, one of us will just have to change venues.
Right, one of us could.
Probably not the one of us who's been saving up for a decade because she makes a pittance compared to the other one of us, but...
True. I mean, or it would be if the other one of us wasn't so desperate to get married to the Plaza, because the Plaza practically is the only happy memory she has of her childhood. So, oops, that's...
Right. One of us will have to move her date.
Yep, one of us will.
And until one of us decides we shouldn't make any concrete plans...
Agreed. There's some time before we lock things in. Let's just not do anything.
Right.
Until one of us moves her date.
Okay, so, talk to you soon. One of us should call the other one.
Did you deliberately choose the worst clip from the movie, then?
No, that's the one. That's the clip. That's the... Do you hear the music in the background? Bucky, 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 funny, jolly, ha, 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 ha. Now, everyone will tell you it's a chick flick. Only in the sense that if you ground it up and fed it to battery hens, it might be better served than running it through a projector.
I know quite a few battery hens who want to go and see this film, I must say.
So, look, where do we begin with the problems, okay? Because obviously what they do is, you know, rivalry breaks out, they switch each other's videos, they switch each other's hair dye, so one of them ends up with blue hair, they switch...
Don't spoil it.
I'm not... This is... all in the trailer.
That's a plot spoiler.
No, oh, fine. I've given away the thing about one of them ends up with blue hair. You know what? If you saw the trailer and one of them's walking around with blue hair, guess what? It was the other one what did it. And that goes on for a while. So, now, Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway, she's okay. And I don't have a problem with Anne Hathaway. She has done some very good movies. She was in things like, she was in Brokeback Mountain. She was in Princess Diaries, which is okay. She's been in some real stiffs as well, like Havoc, which is a really, really terrible movie. And then she's in, Rachel Getting Married, in which she's now being sort of touted as a kind of awards contender. Kate Hudson, on the other hand, completely different matter. Kate Hudson has been in loads and loads of rubbish movies, alongside one good movie, which is Almost Famous. And Kate Hudson, for this, and much is made of this in the press notes, makes her producing debut. And she says, I really wanted to do a movie that was about women pushing the comedic envelope. Well, how is the comedic envelope pushed? Well, firstly, it's pushed by giving us two female characters who say, with completely straight faces, there's nothing in the world better than Vera Wang. And we're meant to think that this is this perfectly acceptable. Okay, so secondly, she casts herself as a high-powered lawyer. Kate Hudson, right? Kate Hudson is a high-powered lawyer. That comes up in about the first 5 minutes, and that's the point at which I go, sorry, leaving. No, Kate Hudson's not a high-powered lawyer. Not having that. I mean, I buy Kate Hudson as the sort of ditzy floozy in Almost Famous. That's fine. Kate Hudson's a high-powered lawyer. No. Seriously,
this is similar to your Meg Ryan as a helicopter pilot.
Yeah, well, that's it. Funnily enough, it's exactly the same as that. Meg Ryan is a helicopter pilot. Kate Hudson is a high-powered lawyer. Neither of the two are true. Thirdly, it's a film which asks you to laugh at the following joke, okay? Kate Hudson, right, who looks like this, okay? She gets into a dress.
Like a puckered up lip. Okay. Sucked a lemon.
Really thin, okay? She gets into a dress that is apparently a size, I don't know, nil or something, right? And then the gag is, you never get it, it's so funny. Anne Hathaway gets her to eat lots of chocolate, right? And she gets really fat, so she can't fit into the dress. So she gets in the dress and she tries to do it up, still looking to zip it up. She says, oh, I'm too fat to get into the dress. Now, number of problems. Firstly, in physical terms, she's even less existent than in kind of intellectual. I mean, she has less of a physical presence than she does as a production thing. She just is not there. Turn around, not there. Okay, no, fine. Secondly,
she needs a Kit Kat.
While she does, but not one that we're boycotting. While she's doing the gag
there are no other Kit
about being too fat to get into the dress, the camera is looking at her incredibly skinny and apparently not being able to. But it's like she said, now look, here's how the gag's going to work. Okay, the thing is, I've eaten a bunch of chocolate.
She's a gay New York man.
She is. I've really put on such a lot of weight. You're never going to believe it. But the thing is, obviously, I haven't really put on weight.
It's Frank.
Because I'm Kate Hudson.
Father of the Bride.
As Kate Hudson, I'm not really like that. So what I want you to do, you do the angle from behind so you see the zip, okay? The zip won't go up. But at the same time, make sure it's on display that I'm not really fat. I'm making a joke about being fat, but I'm not really fat. Because I want people to laugh at the idea of me being fat, but I don't want anyone to think I'm actually fat, okay? Because I'm a lawyer, but I'm not fat. I'm thin, but I'm pretending to be fat.
I challenge you to do that on Newsnight Review. That will be fantastic.
Then, third point. Apparently, at some point in the production process, she's fallen asleep in a vat of plastic, right? And it's gone like this. And her whole face has locked like that. So Anne Hathaway, who is all eyebrows and teeth, here's an Anne Hathaway performance.
Well, meanwhile, like a fish. I'm having to interpret. This is all television.
Eyebrows. No, fine. Meanwhile, Kate, literally,
skin like
she
this,
looks
face like this.
She looks like she's
doing.
Okay, fine. Imagine if you got
on the webcam. The lights are on.
Don't do this at home, right? If you get what do you call it, cling film, right, and you wrapped it around your face with your fringe down, right? Yeah. That would be what Kate Hudson's performance is like. Meanwhile, if you got a Moulinex mincer and put it on either side of your eyebrows, don't do this at home, and your eyebrows were going up and down, that would be Kate Hudson's performance. So what you have is, on the one hand, a performance of a face which has no movement. On the other hand, the performance of a face which is all eyebrows and teeth. Now, for some reason, somebody's got it into their head that this is hilariously funny. And, and the funniest scene in the movie that actually made me wonder whether the ghost of Harold Pinter wasn't actually hanging over all this, is there's a scene in which two characters argue about their wedding plans while somebody else sits in the background doing their tax returns. I mean, you think, oh, I get it, right? It's not meant to be a chick flick. It's meant to be a hideous existential drama that makes you lose the will to live. And it's actually peopled by, strange walk-ons from the Stepford Wives. That's what it is. It's a satire. And then I go, no, it's not. It's a movie that's not funny. and it's 2009, and everything's starting really bad. And I'm going to say
so
it again.
take a Moulin X and a cling film.
No, obviously don't do any of these things, because if you do, you'll hospitalise yourself. But I'm just trying to paint a picture with words, like that bloke describing the fleet lit up. I'm trying to paint a picture.
Well, you were trying, apart from doing impressions, which were ridiculous on the radio, because I had to describe them, unless you're watching on the webcam, because the lights are on and it's being live streamed.
Okay. Kate Hudson, right, who looks like this. Okay? She gets into a dress.
Like a puckered up lip. Okay. Sucked a lemon.
Really thin, okay? So let me very quickly mention to you Charles Dickens' England. Now, you know that I had complained about The Queen not being a real film.
Well, you say it was sort of more for television.
Yeah, I said it's not a real film.
Yeah, because it was made for television.
It's made for television, yeah, and that was why when I was at the BAFTAs, Dame Helen Mirren came and tapped me on the shoulder and went, "Oi, what do you mean it's not a real film?" At which point I went, "Oh, it's Helen Mirren." And I prevented myself from launching into a staunch defence of Tinto Brass's original cut of Caligula at that point, but Helen said the problem was it's a television.
She'd have thought you were a pretentious oaf if you'd done
I'm sure she thinks I'm a pretentious oaf anyway, which is perfectly fine with me. So anyway, Charles Dickens' England. If on a scale of 1 to 10, okay, 10 is a film, right, and 1 is a television programme. Say, for example, Look Northwest. I mean, demonstrably a television programme as opposed to a film.
Local television programme.
Yeah, so a television programme.
Is that the lowest of the low? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just
cheap.
No, hang on. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it is a television programme as opposed to a film. So on the one hand, you have 2001: A Space Odyssey, a film, right? Widescreen looks rubbish on television. On the other hand, you have Look Northwest, a television programme.
I think Look East is probably a bit cheaper.
Fine. In order to stop the bickering, I'll go for Look East, okay? So 1, Look East, 10, 2001. I would say The Queen, about 3, right? Charles Dickens' England, minus 50.
Oh, my word.
I sat in a cinema for 2 hours... 2 hours.
How long?
2 hours watching Derek Jacobi in a television programme that incidentally will be playing on Sky Arts in 2 48-minute episodes, wandering around London and other places going, here is a house that Charles Dickens once lived in. Who knows what he may have wrote here? And then walking off a little bit, and then going, here is another house that Charles Dickens lived in. Here, he may have written something else. And then he gets into a car, and then he gets out of the car, and he goes, and here is another house.
Is that Simon Cowell you're doing now?
At one point, right, he does his brilliant moment. He goes, it's literally... Derek Jacobi takes you on a televisual tour of places that Charles Dickens might have once sat down. It's like the Houses programme, property, but with Charles Dickens as presented by the most incompetent presenter in the form of Derek Jacobi, fine Shakespearean actor, clearly unable to deliver to camera a line. And here is another place where Charles Dickens, 2 fantastic moments. One of them in which he's telling us all about the inspiration for Charles Dickens and where he got his characters from. He says, one thing we know about Charles Dickens is that many of his characters were inspired by names from graves. Here, for example, is a grave upon which is the name Dorrit, spelt D-O, blah, 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 blah. He goes,
all right.
And he goes,
I get the message.
Hang on.
No, you hang on. John Pienaar's going to just talk about David Cameron. We'll come back to you. Sorry to interrupt you in full flow.
I need to do 2 things very quickly.
This is Charles Dickens'
Just going to finish this. Dickens is England, incidentally. Dickens, ''S. I thought you just do Dickens with an apostrophe after it, but Dickens is England. 2 things. One of them is a fantastic moment when he shows us a gravestone and says, on this gravestone is the name Dorrit. It's not spelt the same, but it sounds the same. Yeah. That's therefore not the same name. And another moment which baffled me entirely, in which he's standing in the street in Chinatown in the West End. You know Chinatown in the West End in London. It's busy West End, and he
bustling
says,
indeed.
And he says bustling Chinatown behind him. Many people who live in Chinatown, and he gestures to a building behind him and says, Dickens had lodgings here. And then he looks around at the new incumbent and says, I can't think what he would have made of it now. What does that even mean? And this goes on for 2 hours. 2 hours of... he goes into restaurants and orders a dry white wine. And so we know he drinks dry white wine. At one point, we see that he's run up a taxi bill of £41.82. Why? Is there a tax return issue here? What's going on? I'm sorry. I would say that it was a bad film, except it's not a film. I didn't go into film criticism to watch television programmes. I didn't.
It's the kind of thing you get as a free DVD with the Sunday Express.
It's the sort of thing that you get on an aeroplane on the way from America to England. Hey, what are we going to watch on the way to England? Let's watch Charles Dickens in England. With, it's got Derek Jacobi telling us about Charles Dickens and his England, and Plymouth Hoe. And, it's not a film. It's not a film, and please don't waste 2 hours of my life making me watch a television programme. A guy called Jake is in prison. He gets out of prison. He goes to right an old wrong. Ray Liotta is the boss who wronged him, and then he starts talking to himself. And then he learns some stuff about chess. And then he discovers that you can be your own worst enemy, and that the last place that your enemy is hiding is the place that you would last look in, because that's the place that he is hiding in the enemy that is the person who is looking for you. And the only way to get smarter is to play a smarter opponent, apparently. And there's lots of quotes from Machiavelli and lots of stuff from Julius Caesar which suggests that Guy Ritchie, on his way to writing the script, passed a bookshelf with the Observer book of pithy but a bit rubbish quotes, and he took 4 of them out and wrote them down in order to show them to Madonna, to show them that he was actually very clever. And she said, "That's clever, Guy, put it in the movie." And then he did, and then he got some of his friends.
That was Kermode, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I'm going to play you a clip because I just want to get it out of the way. This is a clip in which the central hero, Jake, and incidentally, I should read you this from Guy Ritchie's own statement about the film. He's called Jake Green, okay? The colour green is the central column of the spectrum, and the name Jake has all sorts of numerical values. The idea is that there's no such thing as an external enemy. That's quite a hard concept to get your head around. But the ultimate jailbreak and the radical actions one needs to undertake to liberate oneself from this jail is what this film is about.
Can we have the clip soon?
I think you'd better.
We've already saved your life once. The next time will not be for free. We shall assist you under 2 conditions. These conditions are not negotiable.
Oh, I'm being grafted.
Condition 1. We will bleed you dry.
Have to put on a better show before you bleed me dry, my friend.
You will give us every penny you have got.
This is a con.
It is only natural that you think that you are somehow being conned, but think a little harder, and you'll realize that this is not a trick. Now, condition 2. You will do as we tell you without argument. This includes answering any questions that are asked.
You don't have a lot of time. And in reality, you don't have a choice.
Now, that voice that was doing that is the voice of Jason Statham's inner conscience. And that voice, it talks to him a lot during the movie. And while the movie is going on, this voice keeps going, "The last place that you would look for your enemy is the head inside the foot of the colour green and the number 7, who is the chess player, who is the last player." And now, you start up now, and here's the thing, okay? Deep breath. I obviously laughed like a jackal when Swept Away effectively torched Guy Ritchie's career, because, hey, I never liked Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. I never liked Snatch. There was something really funny about seeing him just foul up that badly. But only somebody of absolute inhumanity could find it in themselves in the end to laugh at something as desperately bad as Revolver. I mean, if I was a GP and somebody walked into my surgery and pitched Revolver, I would reach for the medicine cabinet. I would immediately prescribe, electroshock therapy and leeches. I would have men in white coats take them away. I would take away their shoe. I mean, it is the work of a very, very mad imagination that believes, A, no one else in the world saw The Usual Suspects or Twin Peaks or any other sort of slightly, arty crime thriller, that nobody else has ever read any books and that therefore has never ever come across any of these incredibly complicated quotations before, that nobody else has ever stumbled upon the concept that, you know what, in the end, the worst enemy that you could have could be you. Now, for the first 20 minutes, I just sat there thinking, oh, this is it. This is like, remember when Sham 69 made that concept album, That's Life? And it just reminded you how much you actually liked Borstal Breakout the first time round. What you didn't want was Jimmy Percy, who incidentally I met on the beach the other day. I was on a beach.
Not interested.
Okay, fine. Lovely bloke. You just think, I don't want Sham 69 doing a concept album. Well, at least Sham 69 were good in the beginning. Guy Ritchie was always rubbish. But the idea of Guy Ritchie, the guy whose entire career is built on making stupid, vacuous, flashy guns and geezers movie, coming on like some philosophy student and lecturing, and he keeps telling us how complicated the concept of this movie is. It's not complicated, Guy. And incidentally, I have been thinking about it since Monday, since you told me to do it. I thought it was imbecilic 5 minutes in. 5 minutes in, I knew exactly what was going on in the movie. And I was thinking, on the one hand, I'm really glad you haven't made Lock, Stock and Snatch again. But then suddenly you realise, no, but I realise what you have made, and actually now I wish you had made Lock, Stock and Snatch again, because at least they were just stupid and funny. I mean, it is like watching your worst nightmare happening on screen so badly that you actually think, I feel sorry for Guy Ritchie, because I can wake up tomorrow morning and think, I didn't make that film, but he has to wake up tomorrow morning and think, I made Revolver. He's going to walk down the street and it's going to be an advert for it on it, and he's going to think, I did that. It came out of my head. I went on national television and national news saying, you know, it's a film about concepts. It's not a film about concepts. It is a film that has the mentality of a fourth former who has just finished reading the back page of the NME and has decided that, in fact, psychology is the future, and has gone away and written a film script. But rather than everyone doing what they should do, which is say, I'm sorry, come back when you are 30 years older and can actually string a sentence together, somebody's put it together. Ray Liotta stands there in leopard skin underpants, blathering this, literally leopard skin, blathering this, and you think, Ray, you've done some funny things in your career, but really, what have they got on you that you had to be in this? Jason Statham, who actually I think is a perfectly fine actor, just, it's like sandpaper rubbing on your ears. And I came out of the screening and there was a news crew standing outside asking people how bad it was, because by this point word had got out. And I had gone in thinking, look, everyone hated Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. It can't possibly be as bad as everyone says, because actually Twin Peaks was a really good movie. 20 minutes in, I thought, it's worse. 40 minutes in, I thought, I am really going to have to leap off the balcony to end the horror of this. By the end of the movie, I was there with David from this show, and we were literally in the brace position, like our heads between our knees, thinking, when is this going to stop? And then it stopped, and there were no credits, and that was the one laugh in the film.
However, Barry in Peterborough would like to say this. Hello, Barry.
Hiya, all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, I loved it. I thought it was, good as its own sort of movie. I didn't think of it in terms of a Guy Ritchie film, and I thought, it was a perfectly good film, seeing someone, getting into the psyche of, like getting in themselves. But I've got to agree with some of the statements that you came out with. I thought that was, they were pretty accurate.
So what was good about it, Barry? Please tell me.
I liked it. Well, the one thing I really liked about it was the visuals, like when the way that they have there's a triad gang or a Yakuza gang, and they're always like in the red light, and when you see Ray Liotta meant to be scheming, he's always in this blue light,
And the central character's name is Green, which, as Guy told us, is in the middle of the colour spectrum. Now, can we just have 10 seconds to get our heads round that concept, Guy?
So, your gestation period, Barry, when you came out, you thought about it and you thought it was okay.
I thought, if it was...
You're a very brave man to come on the radio, sir, and say that.
I thought if I was going by total film or Empire standards, it's probably a 2-3-star film. Not that bad, but not brilliant.
Well, listen, I have to say, Barry, quite seriously, I would love to go and see it again with you, because at the moment, the horror of the memory is so awful in my head that to see it and to find something good in it would really make me sleep easier at night. I take no pleasure in saying this, but actually, I can't even laugh at Guy Ritchie. It's so bad, I just feel pity. I just feel like laughing at it is somehow just cheap and nasty. I know everyone's doing it, but it's just so rotten. So I think it's very good that maybe you can find anything good in it, and I'd love to know what, I'd love to share that.
Maybe Barry's just a more positive kind of a human being than you are.
Yeah, well, I thought, it just, as its own film, I know, there's quite a lot of Guy Ritchie bashing, but I think as its own film, it's not a bad little film. It's definitely a nice 2-star, 3-star film.
And that's 2 stars out of?
20.
Out of 5. Out of 5.
All right, Barry.
Barry, but seriously, Barry, thank you. I think the milk of human kindness flows through your veins, and I would love to have you as a friend.
Okay, well, maybe you should go and see it again. Now, there's an enticing evening for you.
But with credits. I mean, honestly, I'm not exaggerating this. I mean, I was genuinely speechless. I came out in this news crew said, can you come? No, I was. I mean, I can't remember the last time I was speechless. The only thing I'd say about it is it's not as bad as Last Days. Last Days is still the worst film of the year. It is on a par with Sex Lives of the Potato Men, except that at least with Sex Lives of the Potato Men, you knew it was, there was nothing there at all from the beginning. But I actually went into Revolver thinking, hey, everyone's, kicking the hell out of it. Guess what? I bet this is the Guy Ritchie film I like. And I came out of it thinking, you poor thing, you poor wee thing, because it's come to this. It's come to numerical, Kabbalistic, colour spectrum claptrap.
Steve in Sevenoaks, this is sacrilege. You will both burn in hell. How can anyone possibly think this is anything other than sublime? Without doubt, the finest example of its genre ever made. Everyone has their own favourite, often life-affirming moments. My own personal one is Ringo on Yellow Submarine. Maybe that's the key.
That's all right. Ringo and Yellow Submarine is perfectly fine, but of course that's to the left of the colour spectrum that is the character that turned this. I mean, honestly, if you get a chance, just track down the Guy Ritchie interviews. At one point in which he describes the central character, he says, the central character is like the right turn that we take when we should have taken a left turn, and then when we get round the corner, we do the U-turn that makes us realise that the right turn was actually the thing that was left to us, but was right.
Alistair in Haywards Heath. Why is this man allowed to direct movies? Lock, Stock was rubbish and full of cockneys going, look at me, I can play cards and cook vegetables. Snatch was rubbish, and now by the sounds of it, Revolver is also a waste of time. Jay Statham should give up acting, he's rubbish.
He's not rubbish. I think he's all right. I mean, I actually quite like him.
And now I have lost my respect for Ray Liotta.
Yes, well, I think Ray Liotta's respect for Ray Liotta is probably taking quick note. Well, let's destroy any tension by starting off by saying that it is life-threateningly dull. Terminator is one of those classic things. Terminator 1, good. Terminator 2, better. Terminator 3, worse. Although I have to say Terminator 3 wasn't anything like as bad as it could have been. It's the old Godfather thing. 1, good. 2, better. 3,
and
not
going
as good.
down, wasn't it 18, 15, 12?
Yeah, exactly. 18, 15, 12, which means in theory there should have been a PG. No, but it's a 12 certificate movie. And it exists solely because the money says it has to at the end of Terminator 3. The whole deal was, Terminator 1, the Terminator was a killing machine. Terminator 2, he's a conflicted killing machine who turns out to be a dad machine. In Terminator 3, everyone's a machine. Terminator 4, directed by McGee, the film is a machine. Now, if you cast your mind back to 5-6 months ago when there was the Christian Bale outburst, do you remember all this? It was all over the news and YouTube. As Christian Bale was on set doing a scene, and the lighting cameraman had moved some lights around whilst he was doing it, and he went mad, and he went into this great long rant about, how dare you do this, I'm acting, and of course, being Christian Bale, he did it in character, in accent, because Christian Bale's accent is, of course, not actually American, but he does things once he's doing a character, he stays in that accent. So he had a complete sort of, ranting fit, but with an American accent, and Michael Winner was on the radio. He was one of the very few people defending him, saying, if that had happened on my set, I would have done exactly the same thing, because when an actor is in the zone, when they're doing it, it's his scene, it's his big moment, blah, 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 blah. Of course they're going to get worked up, because they're like De Niro, they're thinking into the role. There was also an interview with a producer of Terminator Salvation, who said that Christian Bale didn't want to come on board originally, because he didn't want to just make an action movie. He didn't want to just do that, because, he'd done The Dark Knight, and he's an intelligent guy. He's a very, very smart, if rather intense, young man. So all these indicators are, well, it's not just going to be a stupid action movie, because obviously he didn't want to do a stupid action movie. Plus, he was so involved in the role that when somebody moved the light around, he went completely mad. So, before we get to the review, here is a clip. The plot is, you remember the end of Terminator 3? Well, everything got wiped out. This is now Terminator Salvation. It's the bit that you see briefly in the Cameron movies when the machines have taken over, but there's a resistance, and the whole world is post-apocalyptic. And this is the voice that Christian Bale will do for every line in the film, whether he is ordering an attack or ordering some milk.
This is John Connor. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Listen carefully. If we attack tonight, our humanity is lost.
Command wants us to fight like machines. They want us to make cold, calculated decisions. But we are not machines. And if we behave like them, then what is the point in winning?
Command is going to ask you to attack Skynet.
I am asking you not to. If even one bomb drops on Skynet before sunrise, our future will be lost. So please, stand down. Give me the time to protect our future that all of us are fighting for. This is John Connor.
And he does the whole film. That's like that. Occasionally he gets a bit louder, and then he gets a bit quieter. But the whole film.
No, I can cope with that. You know, Batman speaks in that kind of
No,
voice.
but okay, I think everyone thinks that in Dark Knight the Batman voice was a problem, because in Dark Knight they had made the decision that somehow when he was being Bruce Wayne he talked like, you know, Christian Bale with an American accent, but when he was being Batman he talked like that. He talked like, you know, somebody
who was almost Yorkshire.
It was, that's where he came from. But in this, there's a really weird thing that he's obviously gone into character and he's decided that the character of John Connor will just deliver every line in that voice. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking, why would Christian Bale be in a Terminator when he himself has said nobody thinks that Terminator 3 is the best Terminator movie, so why do we need another one? I don't want to be in just an action movie. And, of course, the film is directed by McGee, who's famous for directing the two Charlie's Angels movies. And he's famous for having said in the... I brought this in just to prove I'm not making it up. Said in the paper over the weekend, this is McGee.
This will be a Guardian supplement, of course, which will surprise nobody.
No, but I just so I'm not making it up. I was headbutted by Bill Murray. I mean, that, in a way, is the review of the film, right? McGee is a director who's headbutted by Bill Murray. I mean, I can't imagine a circumstance under which you could actually get Bill Murray to headbutt somebody, but McGee managed to do it. Now, McGee's entire...
Can you stop that now?
No, I can't, because that's his name.
Yes,
okay?
we'll just say it
No,
ordinarily.
and he has said, one of the reasons people don't like me is because I'm called McGee. You go, no, you know what? There are so many reasons not to like you, and the fact that you're called McGee is actually the least of them. The reason people don't like you is you can't make films. Right, Charlie's Angels and Charlie's Angels Full Throttle are like, let's play dress up and you can all watch and everything's got to cut every other second because there's no substance to it. And in fact, I'm an advertising commercials television director who just happens to have landed on a movie set and been given this great big dressing up box to throw at the cinema screen. And I remember sitting there watching Charlie's Angels and starting to get sort of mild palpitations, irritated. This was the way cinema was going. In the middle of Terminator Salvation, the only two things that kept me going through it, because it's so crushingly dull. I mean, it's explosions and crashes and hitting and shooting and hitting and shooting and shouting and explosions and crashes and hitting and shooting, and it just goes on and on and on. And the only two things that kept me sane were, why did Christian Bale do it, right? The money? Does he need... He just did Dark Knight, which is one of the biggest selling movies of all time. And secondly, why on earth is it that anyone would sign up to a movie that was directed by McGee when it is clear from his past track record that, one, he can't direct films, two, his sets descend into, outright aggression, three, the script wasn't the script that he wanted to do in the first place because it was just an action movie and he wasn't sure which character he wanted to do, and four, that it was entirely the kind of situation in which he was suddenly going to walk on set one day. And here's what I think happened with the lighting thing, right? I think Christian Bale was on set and somebody moved a light in the... And he just suddenly went, I've woken up. I'm in a movie directed by McGee. I'm in Charlie's Angels 3. 1 minute I was considered to be one of the great acting talents of the generation. It's like that thing you wake up naked in your maths exam. Everyone has that, right? Maybe not you, maybe just me. But everyone else has some, dream when you suddenly wake up, how did I get here? And I think that's what happened. I think Christian Bale literally woke up on set one day and went, I'm being directed by McGee. And the knowledge of thinking, because I guarantee he knows not only that the film is rubbish, but that he is absolutely rubbish in it. And the only thing that held my attention...
Is this the fifth point, or is it still on four?
The end was looking at the face of Christian Bale and thinking, around the explosions and all the rest of it, I can see that look of absolute panic when somebody realises they're doing something that they really shouldn't be doing. A final point. The film is directed... This is the final point. Dedicated to the memory of Stan Winston. If you want to honour the memory of Stan Winston, go and hire Vengeance the Demon, a.k.a. Pumpkinhead.
Now, if you want to come to Cineworld in Edinburgh on the 19th of June as part of the Edinburgh Film Festival, we're doing a live show from there. Your last chance for tickets is the last batch, which is being made available now. This moment, this second. If you'd like tickets, you go to... now, just check that website. That looks rather strange to me. I'll just double check that. It's the BBC Tickets website, which is shows.external.bbc.co.uk, which I haven't seen before. But
it just trips off the tongue, though, doesn't it?
Does. So it's shows.external.bbc.co.uk/. That's what I've got there. That I imagine there will be details from the 5 Live website. Cineworld, Edinburgh, 19th of June. We're going to be there. Last batch of tickets.
Well, you could just Google him and her in Scotland, and it'll probably turn up.
Ben in Aberfeldy. Thought I'd tell you my thoughts on Terminator.
Yeah, please let somebody else. Terminator what?
Salivating.
Very good. What did you call it before Terminator? Savlon.
Savlon.
Yeah, Savlon. I think that's good. Savaloy, I thought you said Savlon, yeah.
First, I am Christian Bale. Hear me roar. Yes. Second, the film is a terrible mess, and there was nothing in it I haven't seen before. Yeah. There was some suspicious CG in places, and aren't we all glad Arnold Schwarzenegger keeps a handy batch of mist floating gently over a certain part of his otherwise exposed nakedness. The last Terminator film was by no means a masterpiece, but was enjoyable and disposable. This incarnation, however, just felt as if it had fallen off the Jerry Bruckheimer robot film production line and then staggered shakily into a corner where it died a slow and painful death. This is a film which, ironically, has no heart. Jamie and Joe.
Can I just say that was very well written and very eloquent?
Thank you. I think I performed it quite well.
You did.
Dear Mark and Simon, we've just been to see Terminator Regurgitation, and we thought it was really innovative. The first ever collage movie. Every single scene was from another movie. Yeah. We spotted The Dark Knight, a cheesy CGI motorcycle sequence. Yeah. Lord of the Rings, Sauron's Tower. Apocalypse Now, the helicopters heading off into the distance. Transformers, big robot and with motorcycle legs. The Matrix, robot squids with the red eyes. Minority Report, the inside of Skynet. Alien 3, the monster at the end gets covered with the hot metal and then sprayed with cold liquid. It went on and on and on. It was like a game. In every single scene we were whispering, that's from such and such, that's from but not necessarily in a camp voice. Also Terminator 1, we won't spoil it. Terminator 2, the truck chasing the motorcycle. Anyway, I'm glad we got to see it before we heard Mark's review, because I'm sure he won't be able to review it without spoiling the surprises.
The very worst thing about it, of course, is it is like, and if such a thing is imaginable, McGee is like Michael Bay's untalented cousin, and this is like a bad version of Transformers. And bearing in mind what I thought about Transformers, that is just about as bad as you can get. And I think one of the reasons, for example, I was so happy that we was talking to Ken Loach this morning was just in the wake of something like that. Just thank heaven for filmmakers like Ken Loach who actually want to make films rather than just make stuff on screen. And finally, this week, Zidane, a 21st century portrait.
Which you walked out of in Cannes.
I did.
Yeah, you didn't go and see it again, did you?
I got it on DVD and I watched the rest of it to make sure.
How long is it?
It's over 90 minutes. Look, here's the thing. It's not a film. It is an art installation co-directed by Douglas Gordon, whose previous crimes against cinema include 24-Hour Psycho, in which he showed Psycho really slowly, so it took 24 hours, because, if you look at it really slowly, you realise it's really artistic. Yeah, I realised it was really artistic the right speed. And In Between Darkness and Light, in which he projected The Song of Bernadette and The Exorcist onto the same screen, because they're like two sides of the same film. No, they're not. That is like saying the Mona Lisa and Whistler's Mother are the same picture, right? You stick to your art galleries, mate, and I will stick to my cinema. So what we have now is 17 cameras chasing Zinedine Zidane around a pitch for the course of an entire movie. On screen we get little bits of his thoughts coming up as subtitles, and there's a sound mix with some music and roar of the crowds, and then all down to television, then roar of the crowds, then all down to television. And some people are saying it's brilliant, it redefines cinema, it's extraordinary, it's an extraordinary viewing experience. It's what? It's not. It's incredibly dull. And here, I hate football, right? I hate conceptual art, but there's something I hate more than football and conceptual art. I hate conceptual art about football. I hate the gentrification of it. I hate the fact that people who now consider themselves to be great say, let's take football, we'll take football and we'll do something with that. Look, I don't understand football. It's fine, okay? You don't have to do this gentrification of a sport which was doing perfectly fine until people with art degrees came along and started messing around with it. What we have is not a film. It is an art installation. It belongs in an art gallery. It should not be in my cinema. And I'm sorry, but the people who are saying, this is great, this is one of the great cinematic experiences, it's not. It simply isn't. And it's about time people, this thing that John Lennon said, avant-garde is French for BS, right? Well, I do feel that an awful lot of claptrap gets away under the shroud of, it's conceptual art and you don't understand it. But the fact of the matter is, I do understand cinema. And this is not cinema. This is conceptual art with a capital F. It is, just a terrible indulgence that's been foisted onto the cinema screen because everyone now thinks that anything that looks like conceptual art has a place in cinema because, hey, it must be cleverer than cinema.
Can I get you a cup of tea or something?
No,
okay.
Because this is important. This is important. You want to put it on in the gallery? Fine. You want to put it on your front room? Fine. You want to project it up the side of the table? Fine. Just don't put it in my cinema. Doom, after Super Mario Brothers and Street Fighter and Tomb Raider, oh hooray, as another film based on a computer game. So, look, computer games are rubbish, right? Movies based on computer games are doubly rubbish. And watching Doom, you could sort of feel this great tidal wave of social inadequacy sweeping all over you. I've started to get acne as a result of that screening. I'm smelling bad body odour, anorak, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, if you're interested, The Rock is in particularly uncharismatic form, which is strange because when he came here, he was rather nice, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Fine. Well, he's obviously had a charisma bypass since then, and he's the leader of a crack elite team who are going to be sent to, it's another place, Mars, I think it is, to go and shoot a whole bunch of aliens.
Reading loud and clear, General. Union Aerospace has requested assistance to contain a Level 5 breach at their Olduvai facility. How many personnel involved? 6 scientists are under lockdown in a high-security lab where the breach occurred. Another 79 UAC employees are on site. Arc travel has been suspended. What's the objective? Code Red. Assess level of threat. Assess level of threat. Protect and retrieve UAC property. Maintain quarantine at both ARC portals by any means necessary. Use extreme prejudice? Extreme prejudice. If necessary, search and destroy. Over. Search and destroy. Orders received and understood. Out.
He's really pulling out all the thespian stops there, isn't he?
Everything on the table for us all to enjoy.
The BBFC certificate thing says 15 contains strong language, violence and gore. You think, hooray! But it also contains, incredible tedium and scenes of extended, protracted dullness. Apparently, The Rock was offered the other role, which is the role of Grimm, but he chose the role of Sarge on the grounds that it was more interesting. Well, I wish. There's nothing interesting happens at all. There's a bunch of monsters, and the monsters are quite well done. They tend to be sort of people in suits, but hey, that's what they are. And you get, a rag bag of bits from Predator and Aliens and, all those movies thrown together. And then 2/3 of the way through, it goes into the thing that made Doom the computer game success that it was, which is the point of view shoot 'em up, and they run around and a bunch of monsters happen and get shot, and that's the end of the film. The only interesting thing about it is that Rosamund Pike, who's in, is it Pride and Prejudice? Yes, Pride and Prejudice. I keep wanting to say Sense and Sensibility. Pride and Prejudice. Great British thesp is in it as some kind of, it's one of those typical roles in which she turns up with a white coat and she says, oh, no, I'm a biogenetic, and you think, no, you're not, you're Rosamund Pike. It's fine, get on with it, as you were. And it's absolute nonsense and, pointless. The thing that really bothers me about these things is people play computer games because they get to control the action. Well, when you watch a film, it's like watching somebody else playing the... I don't want to play computer games, but I want even less to watch somebody else playing a computer game for me, and thrice badly to sit in a cinema watching somebody else playing the computer game for me when they could be showing the Ninth Configuration or Ben-Hur. It's a big screen. Why waste it with all this stuff? Rubbish. Complete waste of time.
Boothman in Edinburgh. I saw a trailer for Fred the movie last week.
Oh, blimey.
Which is where we're going next.
Yes,
the evening after your show, in fact, and I knew within seconds that Mark was going to do the horrible Fred voice when he reviewed it. I pondered all week whether or not to listen this week because I knew it would be ghastly, but I thought I'd better give you a chance, and I did. I've just turned on. How long before Mark did the voice? 11 seconds, I think, and he's done it twice already. This is my first and last plea to your sensitive side. Please don't do it again. Explain that the character has a monumentally annoying voice and leave it at that. People will understand and I will remain a loyal listener. Come on, I've got 2 kids under 3 and I get enough of this screeching at home without listening to a grown man with massive hands doing it on the radio.
Listen,
says Nigel.
I had to sit through Fred. Okay, here's for those who don't know, and I didn't in advance. Okay, Fred is an internet sensation. Apparently, according to the channel, his channel, he's a young guy, right, who has this character Fred, who when he does him on the internet has a speeded up, high pitched voice, who's young, playing younger than he actually is. And apparently, by April 2009, the channel had over 1 million subscribers, making it the first YouTube channel to hit 1 million and the most subscribed channel at the time. The Fred channel has received over 96 million channel views and over blah, blah, blah. Fred is the second most viewed comedian of all time, being the most popular YouTube channel amongst 13 to 17-year-olds in the UK. So have subsequently gone back and looked at some of the Fred things on YouTube, in which they're shorter. Obviously, they're 3 or 4 minutes long. And in which Fred is talking like this. He's doing this kind of voice. Now, in the movie, the deal is this guy who's playing this annoying hyperactive kid is with us for 90 minutes, and the voice is slightly different, and the shrieking is turned up. And what happens is, it's very rarely that I've got to the point of thinking, I've got to leave, I've got to go. The thing isn't funny for a start, but it may be funny in 3-minute segments, and I understand that huge numbers of people find Fred funny on YouTube. Believe me, Fred on YouTube, from what I've seen of it on YouTube, is not Fred the movie. Fred the movie is like being in the room with the sound of fingernails scraping down a blackboard, with the sound of Velcro ripping, with just everything that possibly could put you... And what happens is that as Fred, he's like, the door, and that's talking to the camera. But the most annoying thing about the Fred character is that he screams and shrieks, and he literally goes, ah! And he does that, and he keeps doing it. Ah!
Sorry, guys.
It's going by, and he's going...
apologising to the engineers and the listeners. Sorry, Nigel.
No, I'm sorry. How long this? Okay, fine.
We've got the message. You can stop now. No, you can.
I want to give you an example.
I might fade you out.
5 seconds.
I might fade you out. Stop. Fade him out.
That was 5 seconds.
Fade him out.
That was 5 seconds.
See, I can fade you out. Now fade him back up again.
5 seconds.
Too much.
Right? I had 90 minutes of
I don't
that.
care.
How many 5 seconds in a minute?
You're paid to go and see these films.
Many 5 seconds.
You don't have to inflict the worst bits.
I took stuff and put it in my ears. I was gripping the bottom. I was doing everything to not leave. I don't leave. I don't walk out of movies. I have to say, along with a Serbian movie, it's my least favourite viewing experience of the year. It was like...
People might have walked out of it.
And at the end, people would give it was like
I'm going to walk out of this review in a minute.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. And you've been in the room with me. Fine, go. In fact, the impression of Fred the movie is going to drive you out. I had to stay.
You have lost your microphone. You have lost your broadcasting rights. You are no longer a broadcasting legend. What else is new?
Since we're in New York, let's do a New York movie. 2 for the money, new movie with Matthew McConaughey and Al Pacino, who considered by many to be the king of New York. I think Al Pacino's greatest acting performance was in Cruising. As I said earlier on when we were in Central Park, you could have looked under the bridge where Al Pacino stood in those leather chaps in his most controversial role to date, a film which he still refuses to talk about, despite the fact that I keep asking him to talk about it, because I want to make a documentary about it, but he wants to forget about it and disown it.
How often do you talk to him?
Well, I mean, as often as I possibly can, which is once. I mean, through his agent,
so
obviously.
So you once asked to talk to him?
I once asked his agent.
No.
He didn't even say no.
Right, so on the basis of that, you say he always refuses to talk about it every...
But if they lose, we get zip. So the object here, my dear, tall, athletic, religious friend, is to win.
I can do that.
And so what Matthew McConaughey does is becomes a sports advisor. People ring up, he advises them on how to bet, and of course he starts to win. He has a winning streak, loads and loads of people make lots of money, but guess what? Things do not always go according to plan, and there is an up and a down. Pride comes before a fall. Now, there's a review of this film by Roger Ebert, who's a very well-respected US film critic, which I read before we came out over here because I wanted to see how the US critics had responded to it, because it didn't do very well at the US box office. And he said it's just wonderful to see an actor like Pacino on such a role, such a winning streak. He's really found his mettle. He's just hit after hit after hit. He just is really, in the groove. Now, I don't know about you, but I wonder when it was that Al Pacino stopped acting and just started doing the Al Pacino impersonation. Started saying, for this role, I think I should have some stubble and a small beard. I should have black hair. I should wear black glasses. I should probably dress in black. I should wander around the streets of New York talking very fast. And every now and then I should go, hoo-ha, hoo-ha, hoo-ha. And then I should have a dicky heart, which means that occasionally I go, there's a moment in the film in which Al Pacino pretends to have a heart attack, and the Matthew McConaughey character, he's having a kind of father-son relationship with him, runs over and oh no, and then Pacino says no, I was just putting it on, I was just acting having a heart attack. The thing is, Al, if you're going to play a character who acts having a heart attack badly, you have to distinguish it from the scenes in which you have a heart attack real in the film, because it looked exactly the same to me. Now, I think that Pacino can be a great actor. I think that he has been a great actor. I think you look at Panic in Needle Park, it's an extraordinary performance. You look at his work in the Godfather trilogy, perhaps less so in Godfather 3, but it really is, and people were citing that as, you know, classic New York movies, and he really is the centre of that. I know everyone remembers Marlon Brando, but in fact, his character and the De Niro character, you know, are really the thing that hold that performance together. I'm not entirely sure that Marlon Brando's work is the thing that The Godfather is central for. But it seems to me that Pacino has just got into this habit of being Al Pacino, of just doing the fast-talking, jabbery, you know, I'm a little bit mad. The role in which he did this most classically was The Devil's Advocate, which is actually a very good film with Taylor Hackford, again, another New York film, which was a great moment in which he explained why the devil never takes cabs. The devil always uses the subway, because, you know, there's no point in taking cabs. You need to get around, take the subway. And it's a very convincing performance by him, but it is the sort of uber Al Pacino performance, in which he literally went hoo-ha, hoo-ha, a lot. And in this movie, you just keep expecting him to do that. Now, Renée Russo is in it. I love Renée Russo. She's one of the co-producers of it. Hats off to her for at least trying to get a character-based drama off the ground. It's just, it's a guy coasting. It's not a great script. It's nothing we haven't seen before. Any Given Sunday is a better sports movie. It would be really nice to see Pacino playing a role in which he was a pitiful little wimp, or in which he was a slow-talking person. Or, I mean, the most annoying performance from him is Scent of a Woman, in which he does Al Pacino playing a blind man who says hoo-ha and walks across roads in front of taxis, but that's okay because he's Al Pacino, so he's perfectly safe. It's a little too much coasting, and I can't quite understand why people think this is good acting. This isn't good acting. Cheap and shoddy and nasty, and they're not proud of it. That's just what they are. There's something about Hostage with its just endless reliance on images of loved ones being tied up and bound and abused. You know, it's really kind of tacky and seedy and And you sit there thinking, if this was just a scummy Roger Corman movie, I wouldn't care. There'd be a scene in a strip club, there'd be an exploding helicopter, they'd be able to be fine. You'd know where you are. But there's some kind of moral sanctimoniousness involved in putting all these sort of very leery, violent images, you know, images of torture and all that stuff in front of us. But it's okay because we're rooting for the good guys. I haven't forgiven him since he tried to chat up my wife in London Zoo. Bruce Willis? Yeah. When did Bruce Willis try to chat up your wife in London Zoo? A couple of years back. Really? Yeah, and that's it. I'm not going to see any of his movies now. Okay, fine. Well, believe me, you're not missing anything in the case of this. Shall we? Can I move swiftly on? You moved on before the Prime Minister comes out. Okay. As Brad Bird left, you said that the Prime Minister's statement is coming up, and Brad Bird said his statement is, actually, I quite like Boogeyman. Well, it might be. It might be. I think it's unlikely. 9 Songs. I talked about this a little bit after Cannes. 9 Songs is the new film by Michael Winterbottom, and basically it's been described everywhere as the most sexually explicit film ever to be allowed into British cinemas. It's probably true. It's basically a relationship between two people which has broken down at the beginning of the film, and the guy is remembering his relationship, and he's remembering in terms of him going to a bunch of gigs, the 9 songs of the title, and in between that, the sex that he had with his girlfriend. And it's all done on handheld video, and basically the film's very short. It's only about 65, 70 minutes long, and about half the running time is taken up with 2 people in a hotel room or in their own room having sex, having actual real, you know, here it is, we're not simulating it sex. Now, do we have time to play a clip, or what do you figure? Go ahead. Okay, firstly, I should say that my big problem with this film is this. I didn't find it in any way arousing, which it clearly isn't meant to be. That's absolutely fine. One of the things that Winterbottom has managed to do, which I think is interesting, is to make the least titillating, most explicit movie around. I mean, it is astonishing that a film with so much explicit material in it, because there really is nothing left to the imagination, is so completely free of titillation, and good for him. In fact, it's dull, and I think he aimed for dull. My problem with it is that I found it irritating, and the reason I found it irritating was I found the 2 people irritating, and here's the reason why.
We spent my birthday in a hotel where a friend of Lisa's worked. Lisa gave me a book on the Antarctic as my present.
The ice is everywhere and everything. It spreads to all sides, an unbounded void of alien whiteness and geometric rigor. Antarctica is the highest, windiest, driest continent. Its topography and dynamics the simplest on Earth, an exercise in reductionism. The iceberg is a microcosm of Antarctica. It's a fragment torn loose from the continent, both substance and symbol. Within its ice, the berg contains a record of all ice terrains. As it moves away from the mass of ice, it gradually disintegrates. Most bergs will last less than 2 months in open sea.
Yeah. People will watch it with the sound down, won't they?
They will. They'll turn the sound up for the... oh, actually, boom. Sorry, I missed that joke. Yeah, well done, Simon. Do you want to run it by me again?
No.
Okay. You know, there's the songs which they'll turn the sound up for, obviously. The problem with the film, which is probably also its triumph, I hate these two people. I just found them really annoying, really aggravating. There's a great moment in which...
Are they two like that all the way through?
All the way through. And the guy says, oh, she was great. She was one of those people. She was crazy and egotistical and carefree. And I think, yeah, who I would spend 2 minutes with and then leave because I can't.
An exercise in reductionism.
It is.
What is that?
But the interesting thing is that if you just said, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a film that shows everything, but absolutely is just, you know, unbelievably dull, then for that, Winterbottom should be praised. When Winterbottom is good, like when he makes 24-Hour Party People, which I love to pieces, and, you know, we had Tony Wilson on the programme, and it's a great, great film. When he's bad, he makes films like Jude and Butterfly Kiss, which is one of the, you know, 20 worst movies ever made by anyone. And Nine Songs is like somewhere in the middle. On the one hand, it is incredibly dull and incredibly pretentious and incredibly full of itself. On the other hand, as a sheer technical exercise, it's kind of interesting. Yeah, fine. So you managed to do that, and at no point is anyone even vaguely aroused. My only concern is this. It's been passed uncut by the BBFC 18 certificate for cinemas. Fine. Great. They've made the decision that I predicted they would make. Incidentally, I'd like to say that I think I was the only British journalist in Cannes who said they'll pass it uncut in cinemas. They won't want to cut it.
Well done, you.
Thank you. You want to say that with slightly less sarcasm? Because I've already had the Nick Broomfield bad breath thing. I don't have to go through it with you again.
No, you've done very well.
Can I just say, incidentally, Nick, if you're listening... Anyway,
that was like an Exorcist moment for me.
I hope it was. And, you know, Nick...
Keep going.
Again, if you're listening, my breath smells, but your film stinks. The problem with it is that it's... When you pass that uncut on video, I think you're going to give yourself a precedential problem. I would think that in 6 months' time, there is every possibility that having passed 9 songs uncut on video, a distributor of a porn video could legitimately go to the BBFC and say, hang on a minute, if you've given him an 18 certificate, then give me an 18 certificate rather than an 18R certificate. And the BBFC's defence is, well, this is art. It's got narrative. It's got characters. I hate those kind of distinctions. I don't believe that you can distinguish between art and not art. So I think that they may have given themselves a rod for their own back. But hey, as far as the film itself is concerned, it'll come and go in the cinemas. There won't be any problem, you know, with people who want to go and see it will go and see it. They won't be titillated. It is an interesting exercise, but a boring film. A boring film. So can I just quickly knock off a couple of other titles? I know we're running terribly over, but there are a couple of other things which I've seen. I've suffered for them, and I want you to suffer too.
We're running over, but it's someone else's slot.
Fine, so, you know, so that's fine.
Just witter on for a bit longer.
College Road Trip, right, which is the new movie by Martin Lawrence. And just, excuse me while I just... You know, the Martin Lawrence effect. Martin Lawrence is like Eddie Murphy without the talent.
It's a promising start.
I know. Martin Lawrence is just... one of those screen presences that makes you, as soon as you see his name, you think, oh, blimey, Charlie, it's Martin Lawrence. And he's an unfunny, funny guy. He's apparently, and I say apparently because this is, you know, according to reports on the internet, I can't guarantee that it's legally true. Apparently, he was banned from Saturday Night Live on NBC some years ago, back in the 90s, for doing an opening monologue which was, let's say, less than progressive in its attitude towards women. He also, and this is true, in the 1990s, if you remember, made headlines with various, you know, escapades running around in a state of bemusement and excitement and armament, and you know, things weren't going well for him at that point in his career. We know what? You don't remember that?
No, I see. No, you know, yeah, get on with it.
Yeah, fine. So what happened was he then cleaned up his act. He was a kind of bad boy. He was actually in that movie, Bad Boys, which was him and Will Smith. That was great, wasn't it? Look, one person with talent, one person with no talent. Which one of them is going? How the career is going to go?
Can you spot the difference?
Yeah, and years later they came back and they did Bad Boys 2, and it was like one person, famous superstar, other person, you know, currently enjoying a little respite from being in the television press. So now he's made this grisly move into making family comedies like this Disney movie, College Road Trip, which just goes to prove my maxim that the nicer the movie, the nastier the people involved in making it. I mean, I have met loads of people who've made really sleazy, horrible horror films, and they're lovely to a man. Wes Craven, one of the most intelligent, articulate people you could ever meet, made Last House on the Left. Those people that made Mum and Dad, met them in the street the other day, really, really nice people. People who make family comedies quite often hideous, horrible people. So the story,
as sweeping generalisations go,
it's one of the closer ones to the truth. I mean, I'm not being entirely fatuous about this. It is true. People who make mainstream, blockbuster, kid-friendly entertainment, quite often,
are they going to hell?
Well, I'm not saying they're all going to hell. That is a sweeping generalisation.
I was just trying to paraphrase your argument.
Whereas I have yet to meet an unpleasant person who made a genuinely unpleasant horror film. I mean, even the people who made horror films I don't like. They're just nice. They're
discussion to be continued.
Yeah. So the story is Martin Lawrence is an overprotective father, and his kid is going to go to university. And
so the editor of Blue Peter is...
No, Blue Peter's not a film.
No, that's true.
Although, Biddy Baxter, I was once... you've brought this together brilliantly. Biddy Baxter... when Wes Craven's Last House on the Left that I just cited, I can't believe you just walked into this. Wes Craven's Last House on the Left went to the Video Appeals Committee to argue that it should be released uncut without the 16 seconds of cuts. And guess who was on the Video Appeals Committee jury?
Was it Biddy Baxter?
It was Biddy Baxter.
Former editor of Blue Peter?
Yes, and guess what that Video Appeals Committee decided after hearing my expert witness testimony?
You appeared in front of this.
I did, yes, about how Last House on the Left should be released uncut and the 16 seconds of cut should be waived. Guess what they did?
Ignored you.
They doubled the cuts. They doubled the cuts as a result of my testimony. Isn't that brilliant?
That's great.
That's actually true.
She also turned me down for a Blue Peter presenter.
Well, there we go. She probably hadn't seen... Is that right?
It's true. Thanks, Biddy.
Okay, fine. So college road trip. He's an overprotective dad. She wants to go to university in Georgetown. Who wouldn't want to go to Georgetown because...
Georgetown Massacre?
No. What? No. Georgetown is where... What was filmed in Georgetown? Do you know... Are you
Mary Poppins?
No. Now I can't tell whether you're playing with me. Do you know what was filmed in Georgetown?
Get on with it.
Fine, The Exorcist was filmed in Georgetown, right? So I love Georgetown for exactly that reason.
Okay.
Of course, why didn't you think of it? But he wanted to go to a local university. He decides that he'll go on a road trip to take her to Georgetown University, and on the way he'll put her off going to Georgetown University and she'll go to somewhere near. So 3 problems. 1, well, not funny idea, but more than 3 problems. Secondly, him doing overprotective father is meant to be kooky and crazy, and he's creepy as sin. I mean, he's just really, genuinely creepy and ghastly. Plus, he's playing a policeman, the irony of which presumably not lost on anyone who followed the news in the 1990s. Plus, they don't even get to Georgetown. Well, they get to a place they say is Georgetown, but it's clearly not Georgetown, it's Connecticut. So I sit through the whole movie thinking, well, at least at the end I'll get some nice shots of Georgetown. I don't even get that. It's a ghastly, horrible movie. And if you take your underage children to see Batman and they're traumatised by it, you'll do them less damage to their soul than taking them to see College Road Trip, which was past you, apparently for mild slapstick violence. Oh, I'll tell you, the only good thing about it is this. I was about to not forget to say this. Guess who's really brilliant in College Road Trip?
Oh, there's another question.
Yeah.
Okay, Marty Caine.
No.
Michael Caine.
He's a little bit country. She's a little bit rock and roll.
Sheena Easton?
No!
Kenny Rogers.
Donny Osmond. Donny Osmond. One of the only redeeming thing about College Road Trip, this is how bad of a movie it is that every now and then, Martin Lawrence playing this really, really annoying parent, every now and then Donny Osmond pops up to be an even more annoying parent.
This was on the plane.
Did you see it?
No, I saw that. My wife watched it because she was in the Donny Osmond fan club. Even she couldn't praise this film.
Fine. It was awful. Except, oddly enough, Donny Osmond, he's funny.
He's an idiot.
In real life he's an idiot?
No, in the film.
No, I mean, I like Donny Osmond. And in the film he plays an idiot, but his right, the classic case, right? Martin Lawrence playing idiot father. Ugh! Donny Osmond playing idiot creepy father. Actually, that's quite funny. So there were 3 moments when I actually went, oh, this is okay, because now Donny Osmond's on screen. And that's all right. And that's how wrongly the movie had gone. Every time Donny Osmond came in, I felt like I'd been given a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Is that it?
I've got 2 other things I can say very quickly.
Because we're gearing up for a Guillermo del Toro interview.
Okay, I'll do it very quickly.
And some Hellboy stuff.
Literally in 2 sentences, right? Face Addict, which is yet another movie in which somebody who once hung around with Andy Warhol makes a documentary about going back to New York and, what brilliant times they had and how difficult it all is facing up to drug addiction. Blah, 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 blah. Swiss photographer who apparently took some photographs of Blondie. Most boring, self-indulgent, and now we had to go back to New York and find all the people that I was working with back in the 1970s. Oh, it is so hard being a recovering heroin addict, very hard being an artist. And you think, yeah, fine, shut up, not interested. And the other one is Zero, an investigation into the 9/11 thing, which all I have to say is this. There wasn't a conspiracy. The government weren't looking. It was a mistake. Sorry. The towers don't fall faster than the speed of gravity. The Pentagon was not hit by a missile, but by a plane. The terrorists were not covertly funded by, George Bush in some wacko. And you know what? Just because you've got Dario Fo to tell me otherwise doesn't cut the mustard.
So for 0, marks out of 10.
Yeah, marks out of 10, 0. Out of 10, 0.
Hello and welcome to our second vodcast. This is Simon Mayo and I'm at Wentworth for the PGA Golf. Mark is in Cannes for the film festival, which you know he loves so much. So I'm here, he's there, bit of split-screen fun. And as you know, there's a big rant coming up because this week saw the release of Pirates of the Caribbean 3. Hold on to your hats. Simon Mayo at Wentworth, Mark Kermode in Cannes.
Live from James King's Palace of Earthly Delight.
Alex Neve in East Dulwich says, having just seen the third instalment of this nauseating franchise, I can safely assure the listening public that there is not a single element that suggests to me that we won't be getting a full-on Kermodian-style rant of the century. Put away your eye patches, give up your rum bottles, turn your radios up to 11. It's going to be an absolute screamer. Mark, what did you think of the new Pirates movie?
Well, I think it's important to say that one has to go into these things with an open mind.
Yeah,
okay?
right.
No, I know. But look, okay. So, I mean, historically, the first Pirates movie was absolute bilge.
Wrong.
And ended up... No, it was rubbish. And it ended up taking like $1 billion worldwide, which was really, really terrifying. The second one was kind of worse because it was longer and it was a holding pattern because it went on for like 150 minutes and nothing happened. I mean, a bunch of stuff happened, but nothing actually happened. Just a bunch of stuff happened. And then when it came out on DVD, and I said to everybody, you should boycott this movie. If this stuff does well, it's your own fault. Then it came out on DVD, and I was told this terrifying fact that it was the fastest-selling DVD of all time. Somebody, it may even have been you, said that on the day that it was released, 1 in 5 DVDs that were sold was Pirates of the Caribbean 2. So I had to go to Nice firstly, so I go to Nice to see, in version original, and I'm really heartened because I get into the cinema, there's only 4 other people in the cinema. It's a 2 o'clock screening. Okay, admittedly it's an English screening in France, but there's quite a lot of English-speaking people in France. It was largely Americans in the 4, so you sit down, okay, think, okay, we're here for 168 minutes. Film starts off with a hanging sequence, a sequence in which a whole bunch of people are hanging, including underage persons, but probably the most misjudged opening of any allegedly family-friendly movie I've seen in a long time. You're sitting there thinking, this is they've totally lost the plot. They've decided to go dark for the for the third Pirates movie. What on earth are they playing at? This is not something that needs to go dark. This is something that needs to lighten up a little. This is something that actually needs to be entertaining. But no, we have this really long, really sort of drawn out, really completely out of place hanging sequence at the beginning. And the BBFC guidelines, so I looked it up, says contains moderate horror and action adventure violence. We said contains completely inappropriate darkness at the beginning that is absolutely out of kilter with the rest of the film and has no right being there. Fine. So we get through that. Then after the opening sequence, the plot, or more precisely the plots, start. And if you remember any of the plot threads that were at the end of Pirates of the Caribbean 2, it's like, oh, well, somebody's got to go off and find a heart, somebody's got to find an island, somebody's got to get a treasure map, somebody's got to get a compass, somebody's got to sing a song, somebody's got to stand on their head and turn around 38 times. Or Blundo Land has got to go and find his dad for some reason that's not clear to anybody, but other than the fact that Stellan Skarsgård is clearly picking up the check and he's a great actor, so I'm happy that he's employed. So it starts. And it goes on a little bit, and I'm thinking, I'm really dreading the moment that Johnny Depp's going to come on and do that Keith Richards impression that we all know wasn't funny the first time and really wasn't funny the second time. And here we go, he's going to do it the third time. And then the movie plods along with, Keira Knightley and Orlando Bland and all the rest of it all happening, and no Johnny Depp. It's 35 minutes before Johnny Depp actually arrives on the screen. And I'm starting to think this is really clever, because what they've done is they've realised that Johnny Depp is so terrible in the film that they're withholding him. They're withholding him because actually everything else in the film is going to do better without him. But no, 35 minutes in, Johnny Depp turns up. But not just one Johnny Depp, 10 Johnny Depps turn up at the beginning. And there's a brilliant line in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is referring to Arthur Dent meeting up with Hoojaman Flip, the Martin Freeman character, and he says he's one of those people that you couldn't see him for months at a time, and then as soon as you saw him, he was immediately annoying. And Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean 3 is exactly, but he's immediately annoying squared. He's immediately annoying to the power 10 because there are 10 of him. And there's a little bit of business about, oh, Johnny Depp's dead, but he's in the underworld. All this stuff seems to exist purely to show off the fact they've got a special effect that can turn a stone into a crab. Great, brilliant, marvellous, not enough to hang a feature film on, but hey, well done to the special effects guys. Then they escape from the underworld that he got into at the end of the last movie, because I think Keira killed him, but I can't quite remember. There was something to do with a kraken. And then they all get together and they say, okay, off we go on the various plot strands again. And it's business as usual. There's actually one line in this when somebody says one person has the 9th piece of 8, which is just about as coherent as any form of plot synopsis gets. On the IMDb trivia page, it says the most amazing thing about Pirates 3 is that they started filming without a completed script. No, they finished filming without a completed script. So they just ended up with like a montage of bits, a whole bunch of special effects, a little bit of him doing that, a little bit of everyone else, and they just stuck them together in any order, and they didn't cut any of it out, just said, there's 168 minutes, shove it out into the cinema, and everyone will buy it, because everyone has clearly had some kind of terrible, joint lobotomy, so that nobody any longer has the guts to stand up and say, this is absolutely terrible, and what are we doing here? Actually, we should walk out the cinema and go next door where they're showing Zodiac. However, Johnny Depp leads to the problems. Let's start with Keira Knightley, because clearly Keira Knightley's agent has been speaking to the scriptwriters and saying, look, it's fabulous, we're really pleased that Keira's back in the movie again, obviously wonderful. The thing is, up until now, she has really been window dressing, and what we really think is that Keira needs to sort of expand her role, and why don't you make Keira a pirate? Because I think really she could do pirates. So through the most ridiculous contrived plot device, Keira Knightley actually ends up being king of all pirates in all the world ever. So Keira Knightley, king of the pirates. This means that Keira Knightley has to do two things. Firstly, she has to do the pirate ha 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 ha. But of course, when Keira Knightley does it, it's like yeah, hello, ha 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 ha. Then she has to do a rabble-rousing speech, which is basically like that speech that Mel Gibson does in Braveheart about, they can take our lives, but they can never take her freedom. Only when Keira Knightley does that speech, it basically sounds like the head girl addressing a convention of fifth formers on prize-giving day at the end of term. So Keira, disastrous, given more to do, messes it up terribly. And then we have the magisterial talent of Orlando Bland. Now, there has always been a problem with Orlando, which is that very early on, the script had a relationship between the Keira Knightley character and the Orlando Bland character. Nobody at that point realised that the minute you got Orlando Bland on screen, nobody would care what happened to him. He's so wet, he's so drippy, he's so completely ineffectual, nobody cares about him. So in the second one, there was this sort of attempt to make the Keira Knightley character somehow interested in the Johnny Depp character, because everybody else in the audience, other than me, was interested in the Johnny Depp character and kind of didn't care what happened to Orlando Bland. So this time, we have to take Orlando Bland, take some kind of interest in him. Now, he's acting this love interest against Keira Knightley. Now, Keira Knightley's acting has always been wooden. But this time, it is like a petrified forest of woodenness. I mean, you really feel like you could build a very nice piece of IKEA furniture out of her performance. It's that bad. And when she and Orlando Bland are on screen together, it's like watching two chairs mating. I mean, there's a scene in which they have to kiss, and it's literally, what is that? Is that a nest of tables? No, it's Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley having sort of some red-hot, passionate embrace that is positively tiki. I mean, you feel like you need to get out the varnish and varnish it. So two central characters. Now, I'm going to give away a plot point now. If you're going to sit through Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and never was a film more accurately named, turn your ears away from the radio now, because there is a moment towards the end of this film in which it is contrived to have Keira Knightley can get married to Orlando Bloom, but she can only see him for one day in every 10 years. I'm sorry. If somebody made me that offer, I'd take it right now. If somebody said to me, if I marry Orlando Bloom, you won't have to see him again for another 10 years, and when you do, it's like, do you take this man? Yes, absolutely. I will take him right now. If I only have to see him one day every 10 years, sign me up, because I don't think I can stand another moment of sitting there in the cinema watching this dribblesome bore, waltz around like somebody out of a milk tray advert. I mean, how on earth has he become the prominent actor that he has? I mean, he killed Kingdom of Heaven stone dead, and in this he's actually got worse than before. And then we have the mighty Johnny Depp performance. So Johnny Depp started off doing this performance as basically Keith Richards, although actually he wasn't really doing Keith Richards as far as I can tell. He seemed to be doing David Bowie around the period of The Laughing Gnome. Everyone says, oh, it's a great impression of Keith Richards, but it didn't sound like David Bowie, hello, I'm a pirate king, Jack Sparrow. That's not Keith Richards, that's David Bowie. But the big gag with Pirates of the Caribbean 3 is, guess what? Keith Richards is actually going to turn up. So you sit there and you fall asleep, and you wake up and you fall asleep, and you stretch your back a little bit, and you feel most of your lower body starting to go numb, and then about 2 hours the way through, Keith Richards turns up, and here's how it goes. Keith Richards goes, and Johnny Depp does, and Keith Richards goes, If you thought Johnny Depp was bad at being Keith Richards, you should see Keith Richards trying to be Keith Richards. I mean, there was a ripple of sort of appreciation in the audience, which, as far as I could tell, was entirely for the fact that Keith Richards was still alive at all. But he's even worse at doing an on-screen Keith Richards than Johnny Depp is. And between them, this sort of, incredible in-joke about, oh, it's so funny, up until now I've been doing Keith Richards, now here he actually is. It's like, no, all of you, all the Rolling Stones don't care, go away. I mean, I never want to see the Rolling Stones. I don't want to ever see another Pirates of the Caribbean movie, despite the fact that at the end of this, there is a door left left open for there to be another one. The whole thing goes on forever. I added this up, right? First movie 142 minutes, second movie 150 minutes, this 168 minutes. I make that the best part of 8 hours of my life. Stanley Kubrick went from the beginning of civilization to, you know, the dawn of a new breed of human being in just over 2 hours. This has taken them 8 hours to get from point A to point A. It's enough. It has to stop now. And really, if you go, you know, if you pay money to go and see Pirates of the Caribbean, it's your own fault, and you're bringing down the collapse of Western civilization. And I had it feeling in my waters that actually Gore Verbinski was going to pull it out of the bag and do something that would make me have to say I'm wrong. But you know what? I am so right. It is so bad.
I haven't been on for 15 minutes. I've been to the 17th tee and I checked on the leaderboard. Let me know when you're done.
You asked, I'm done. Paranormal Activity 2, or to give it its correct title, Paranormal Inactivity Part 2. It's probably not a good idea to say to an audience at the beginning of the film that in 60 days' time a significant death is coming, because you immediately start to look at watching I could grow an entire new set of teeth in that time. So the story is that there is a family in a house with a young baby and complicated family relationships. Obviously, at the very beginning, the house appears to have been broken into, and so therefore they have to get cameras put all around the house, and then stuff starts to happen around the house in the manner of Paranormal Activity 2. There are a couple of familiar faces, well, a significant familiar face, and this whole thing will connect up with Paranormal Activity 1. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to give too much away in terms of, I do understand that if people want to go and see Paranormal Activity Part 2, right, they are, you know, they should be entitled to have whatever surprises are there. Here's what I can tell you about it. It is one of the most boring things I have ever seen. The day that I saw it yesterday, I came to it after having had an hour and a half of dental work done. And the dental work was both more upsetting, more exciting, and more creatively rewarding in the end. Here is how Paranormal Activity Part 2 goes, okay? And it's generally, the film goes like this. Boo! 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 But the interesting thing is that the goes on forever. Forever. It's like watching Day 45 in the Big Brother household. No paranormal activity as yet. In a moment, a pot will fall on the floor.
Does someone actually do that noise?
I mean, it was just stunning. And here's the thing. Alfred Hitchcock once said that the secret to great drama is, you know, you have a conversation with a bomb under a table, right? The audience know that there's a bomb under the table, and then the conversation is full of tension. You know, anything everybody says, because you know there's a thing going off. This is like that, except they forgot to put the bomb under the table. So there is just boredom. It's snoring interspersed by occasional loud bangs. By the time stuff starts happening, and it is a long way off, you are so uninterested in anybody and so disappointed that all they have managed to do is to rehash the riffs that were done for. I mean, I think this one cost best part of $3 million, so it's massively more expensive than the original. It's a film made by somebody who said, that's a good idea. I understand how they did it the first one. Let's read. What is it about the first one that really works? Oh, I'll tell you what it is about the first one that really works is that there's long build-ups to everything, and then very sudden things happening that you know, not good, but very sudden. Okay, so long build-up. Boo. And it just, I mean, honestly, I was just gnawing at my knuckles. Now, here's the interesting thing. Sit next to James King, right? James was sent into paroxysms of despair once and said he literally couldn't sleep afterwards. My head was right, my son, this, looking over at James. Is James jumping? Is James in any way... The rest of the audience, who are probably a non-horror crowd, there are a couple of moments in which people, out of some form of sort of sympathy, were, you know, when the initial bangs happen, because some of the bangs are quite loud bangs. And the fact is, if you go up to anyone and go bang behind them, they get a little jump. That's not really such a big deal. There was a couple of bangs and then a couple of, ooh. Did it go anywhere? No. Was it scary? No. Was it predictable? Yes. Did I care about the people? No. Did I think at any point I was witnessing something that was a reality, blah, 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 playing out? No. Did I want it to be over? Yes. Was it dragging its feet like never before? Yes. And did any sense of threat entirely exist on the basis that, you know, the movie before, which had the same 2 words in the title, that was a bit creepy? Well, it's like that. Only...
Can I suggest something? Yes, I can. Was your mood affected by the fact you just had an hour and a half of dental work? Yes, it almost certainly was.
Nope. I know. I mean, I wanted to like it because I wanted to like it.
But you just had an hour. You just been at the dentist.
Yeah, and I was out.
Your face was numb. You were in pain.
No,
how were you expected to go to any kind of
I felt
film
really good.
which you had to be paid to see?
My teeth were in lovely shape. My teeth were in lovely shape as a result of it. And I sat and I rushed to the cinema and there was James. It's great. And there was Alan Jones, who I like. And there's Nigel Floyd, my best friend. Sat down. Yeah, come on, bring on the scares. Da 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 da.
I think that's the anaesthetic kicking in.
Yeah, the anaesthetic is exactly what Paranormal Activity and boredom like you have never seen. And just wait till the puns reviews start coming in. I paid, £7.50 to see
Right, here's the alternative view from Chris in Cardiff. BSc Honours, IDM, Dip, IDM, not quite sure. Diploma of something. Mark and Simon, I am eagerly anticipating Mark's review of Paranormal Activity 2. My friends and I watched it last night in an opening screening. The packed cinema gasped and swore in unison, and it's certainly prevented each of us from getting a good night's sleep last night. Keep up the great work, says Chris in Cardiff.
It was rubbish.
Well, clearly, he thought it was great.
It was rubbish. It was, and not only was it rubbish, it was knockoff, overinflated, self-important, full of itself, lowest common denominator, annoyance, rubbish. And there's, as I said, there's a reason why they didn't really want critics. Oh, we don't want critics to see it because we don't want them to spoil the surprise. The surprise being, it's incredibly dull. Pimp is the new movie featuring Danny Dyer, and it's directed by and starring Robert Kavanagh, and it's given to us as a mock documentary. It's not as a pseudo documentary. We shot this as a documentary and about all the sort of seedy side of the Soho sex industry, and actually says at the beginning some of these scenes were shot with undercover cameras. Well, you say, well, if that's a way of explaining that it's badly shot, then yes, I'd kind of buy that. But the whole thing about mock documentaries is it has run its course. But don't do a mock documentary which is so bad, so without any sense at any point that any of this could actually be happening in anything approaching the real world. So it's one of those morally duplicitous movies that basically says, oh, moral corruption, let's look at some of it. Oh yeah, now we've gone to a bar where there's some moral corruption. People philosophizing about the sex industry in a way that implies that they don't know anything about anything at all. Has nothing to say, says it very loudly. It's leery and leery and annoying. But here's the funny thing. You think, okay, fine, well that's perfect for Danny Dyer. Now, as you know, Danny Dyer has recently been in the press with this nonsense that he wrote. There was an objectionable column in Zoo magazine that was attributed to him, which he says he was misquoted. I believe that the story is rumbling on, in which he suggested that if you'd broken up with a girl, one way of getting over it was to disfigure her so that nobody else would want her. He then said, oh, terrible. I never said... who knows exactly what the mechanics of how that column appeared in Zoo magazine under Danny Dyer's byline? Who knows? More to the point, who cares? The mistake, quite apart from that, you would be associated with anything like that at all. It's just bar. In the case of this, Danny, the one register that Danny Dyer does is, he said, I'm a geezer, I do geezer, white boy. And in the case of this movie, staggeringly, Danny Dyer is miscast. Danny Dyer is cast as the Godfather figure. He is cast as a sort of porn sex baron. He is cast as the menacing guy wearing the sharp suits who's kind of behind all this sort of sleazy stuff. He's basically the Don Corleone figure. And you just imagine, right? Imagine one of those scenes from The Godfather as delivered by Danny Dyer. You come to me on the occasion of my daughter's wedding. Oh, and you don't show me no respect. Oh! And I just thought, of all the things that you could have done with this movie, right? Leery, laddie, dreary nonsense, right? And Don't give him that role, because, you know, it's the one thing he, in this whole debacle, which is worthless trash from beginning to end, that Dido can't do, it's that. And the scenes of Dido attempting to be this kind of terrifying mob boss, it's just, I mean, it would be funny if it wasn't so pathetic and tragic. It is interesting how we've kind of got to the point that people can be forgiven for casual misogyny in a way that you'd never be forgiven for casual racism. And there is this pernicious undertone through this whole lad culture about somehow it is actually all right to be funny about being horrible to women. Well, A, it's not, but B, being in a movie like this and taking on that role means that you're not just a Burke, but you're a miscast Burke. Incidentally, I should say, in the interest of editorial fairness, Danny Dye has threatened to beat me up because he finds my accent, my impression of him so hideous that he said, if I ever see him, I'm going to put something right across his canister. Well, it's fine. The solution to that is I'm just never going to take a canister with me, and then he won't be able to put anything across
something across your canister.
Yes, I don't know what it meant, but it sounded not entirely pleasant. But it's I mean, even by Danny Dye's standards, it is grot of the highest order.